Welcome to 350 Conspiracy. This week we are talking the Cunningham Lovette incident. This week we're talking about an alleged UFO incident that it was pretty brutal, really. And if true, actually has like multiple corroborating witnesses. And you know that thing we talk about whenever you see like a UFO image that you want different sources, like you want radar, you want visual image, then you want physical evidence.
Several different angles from several different points around a city that all see the same thing, yes.
Exactly, yeah, you want multiple things. Well, this has got that. We've got multiple different types of things. So, tell you a story. It's not really a nice bedtime story, the way it goes. It's one of those, No,
it's pretty much everybody's one of their worst fears, probably. This is one of the reasons why I don't think the government will ever admit to them knowing about alien species that are visiting.
Because stuff like this can happen and we can't do anything about it.
Nothing the government can do about it. So this safety the government keeps trying to sell you for taking away your freedoms, it doesn't really work when there's aliens that can come and abduct you in the middle of the night and they can't do anything about it.
And things like this can happen and we can't do anything. Well, we'll tell the story. March 1950. March. I can't speak. Words.
You can't speak this morning, mate. We might take a recording just to get into talking and continuous prose again.
Stringing more than 3 words together is a problem. Like this.
Yep.
Right. So it was March 1956.
Yep.
There was a Major William Cunningham and a Jonathan P. Lovette, who was a sergeant in the Air Force. Right. So they were at White Sands Missile Test Range. Now there'd been a missile test that night. So they were going downrange to look for debris. So they wandered off down in their jeep and they got off and they got out and they're spreading out looking for debris. Now the story goes that Mr. Lovette went over a sand dune and Cunningham kept walking up the road a little bit. He thought, he's gone off for a whiz or something. Yeah. And then he heard, and this was at 3 o'clock in the morning. He then heard this a scream and that Lovette's absolute terror.
Yeah.
So Cunningham thinks, he's been bit by a snake or something.
Yes.
So he goes charging over, expecting to see him, rolling around the floor, going, I've been bit by a snake. But he doesn't. He sees a large UFO craft, about 30 foot wide, he described it as, and this a snake-like robotic army thing coming out of it, and it's got hold of Lovette and is dragging him towards the craft. Now Cunningham says he's frozen, like with fear, sort of thing.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe alien technology's frozen him. We don't know, but he's frozen. He can't do anything about it. He sees Lovette being dragged into this aircraft and then gone. Right. According to this report, at the same time, radar did detect an object briefly. Right? Now, this appeared in the Grudge report, Report 13, which was the precursor to Operation Blue Book. Yeah. So he runs back to his jeep. He phones the thing, going, my mate's just been took in this sort of flying saucer. Gets back to base. They obviously put him in a padded cell and then go looking for Lovette. Now, nothing happens then for 3 days. Cunningham is interrogated for 3 days. They are searching for the body.
Yep.
Then, 3 days later, 10 miles away from where the incident occurred, they find Lovette's body. I'm being really careful that I don't mix Lovette and Cunningham up because I know that's going to happen at some point. So Cunningham had his bum removed. No, he didn't. Lovette had his... I'm jumping ahead. But I'm being very careful.
Okay.
So they found Lovette, and he was fine. No, he wasn't. He wasn't fine. I'm lying.
Far from fine. Yes.
He was far from fine. Oh, right. So they reckon he'd been out in the elements for at least 2 days. So there was a 24-hour window where we don't know where Mr. Lovette was. Like I said, he was found 10 miles away from the incident. So the list of injuries...
Which seems quite far away, doesn't it, 10 miles? But if you think of it from the perspective of an interstellar spacecraft that might have travelled to this planet, dropping something back on the Earth within 10 miles of where you picked it up from is probably about right.
That's
an error of margin.
Yeah. That go up, do what you're going to do, throw it back down, drop him off, or even drop him. I don't know. But the now the connections we talked about this briefly when we did cattle mutilations and how the similarities, many similarities are. But if you look at a lot of cattle mutilations and then read this list of injuries to a human being, it's very similar.
Yes.
So his tongue and lower jaw had been removed.
Mhm.
There's an incision from his chin down to his larynx. The blood had been drained, but weirdly there was no vascular collapse. So it wasn't like the blood had been sucked out; it had sort of like been drained somehow, which is odd apparently. Both eyes had been removed, and this is the fun bit. His anus had been removed right up to the colon, as if it had been unplugged. So really cleanly removed, and so had his genitals. And again, it was described as they'd been unplugged. There was also several dead scavenger birds found in the immediate area of where his body was discovered. So your first instinct is, Cunningham is a sick guy. He drove Lovett out 10 miles away from where he was supposed to be, brutally murdered him, and left him for the animals. It was my instinct, right? And you'd think that would be relatively easy to prove.
Mm-hmm.
But after several days of interrogation, Cunningham was released with no charge. He was then discharged from the service not long after. So it was sort of like, maybe you did something, but we can't prove it.
Yeah, maybe you did something, we can't prove it. You don't seem to be lying to us, though, on the lie detector at all.
Yeah.
We can't prove you did this because you've got none of his DNA or blood on you.
Exactly, no physical evidence.
No physical evidence whatsoever that you did kill him. It seems more likely that you killed him than this story is true, but there is no evidence for the more likely case, and there does appear to be evidence for the virtually improbable.
Impossible. Well, so when what was it, Shakespeare? Was it Sherlock Holmes used to say, when you've eliminated the probable, whatever's left must be the truth. So
yes,
in this case, but there are elements to this that think the blood was drained and there's no blood at the scene. That's weird. And we talk about cattle mutilations again. It's not possible in the period, short time period we're talking about, that the blood sort of like drains away with no evidence.
No.
Now, the areas that were attacked on his body would be the sort of areas that an animal might go for. It's the soft tissue areas, Unfortunately, they do go for your bum and your genitals and your eyes and your lips because it's easy to eat. But this was talking about clean removal and almost like surgical.
Yeah, surgical laser precision removal of certain parts, which the
seems unlikely.
Can't do today.
No, exactly.
Still.
But and then there's several dead scavenger birds in the area as well. So it's almost like they went over, had a peck, and then keeled over from whatever had happened to Mr. Lovett. So it seems strange from that point of view. And again, that is something we've seen several times in cattle mutilations. And would UFOs really see the difference? So we think this is more shocking somehow because it happened to a human being. But actually, from like a UFO point of view, would they care any difference?
When we're playing with ants, or I don't know, beetles, do you really distinguish between playing with an ant colony or playing with some beetles? I don't think we would we? That's probably what it's like to them.
They don't really care. Yeah,
you're just a lower life form that's inferior to them, that they're capable of doing what they want to.
Yeah. And then also, the investigator said that even if Cunningham had driven out to where Lovett's body was dumped and he didn't have time, there's also no physical time for him to actually commit the crime and dump the body where he said he did. So
because he reported it so quickly, did he? Once he'd obviously,
as soon as it happened, he reported it. And then apparently there was this radar connection as well, that they saw an object on radar. So they obviously believed enough that they thought he might have been telling the truth, or at very least couldn't prove that he was telling a lie.
Also, they do a standard thing in the military when they want something to just disappear, which is they quietly just gave him early retirement and paid him off probably a nice wedge and went, shh, go away. Yeah,
go away, shut up. Well, he did go away and shut up because I cannot find any photographic evidence or interviews with this Major Cunningham afterwards. I can find no trace of this guy. And obviously, I'm not a professional investigator, but I'd have thought somebody else would have tried to find him.
Yes.
That leads into the possibility that this is actually all bullshit. None of it's true. But I'll explain. For one, there's Grudge Report 13, the Grudge report only goes up to report 12 officially.
Right.
And then it didn't appear in Operation Blue Book, even though this story does appear in the Operation Blue Book TV series on this in the History Channel that was done last year. So they did talk about this on that TV show.
Even though it wasn't actually supposedly contained within Project Blue Book. I did wonder that, because I did see something about there not being a number 13 of the Grudge report.
Yeah. So that's suspicious, but that could have been removed. So
it could also be a way of the government covering up after the event and trying to hide a true anomalous event that they don't really want people knowing much about.
Mm.
Yeah.
So the two people that brought this story to light was William Cooper and William English. Right now, other than to say William English was apparently a Green Beret, I can't find anything about him. I can't find any information about him at all. Right. But William Cooper, which was actually the first chap to release this information, I can find out quite a lot. He says he was in the Navy and the Air Force, which I thought was a bit strange. And I don't know many people have served in two services. Maybe that's an American thing. It doesn't happen in the UK very often.
Maybe if you're a specialist in something, then you could jump, because
potentially,
if you were in the Air Force, but the Navy needed your specialism.
He also says he was a member of Navy Intelligence. And when he was a member of Navy Intelligence, he came across an uncut version of Grudge and found this incident and this story. Right.
Okay.
And that's why he released it. And then William English apparently saw the same undoctored version of the document and released it. But I can't find anything about this guy. So, but William Cooper is an interesting guy. I saw one report that said both of these people were complete frauds. They were exposed as frauds and liars. Now, William Cooper does seem to have been exposed a few times, unfortunately, as being a liar.
Right.
He had a TV show called The Hour of the Time from 92 to 2001. He wrote a book, Behold the Pale Horses, where he talks about a lot of things. This was considered afterwards. Now, you know me, mate. I love a militia. Anybody that's a member of a militia, I think, good on you. You know, you're not all crazy, and everybody should be heavily armed in their own homes. That's what I believe. I'm sorry. But this book apparently was the manifesto for the militia, which is concerning to start with. What I imagine it to be a militia is a bunch of blokes with machine guns in the woods thinking the world's going to end, which it might. To be fair, history might show them as geniuses, but sometimes they come across as crazy.
Yeah.
But in this book, he made loads and loads of claims.
Right.
So, and some of them are actually a bit worryingly believable, but some of them are maybe a bit crazy. So, the JFK assassination, right?
Yep.
Aliens were about to take over, and JFK was about to announce it. That's why he was assassinated, according to Mr. Cooper. There was the Illuminati were declaring war on the USA because the USA were trying to fight against this alien takeover and their New World Order that was coming.
Well, I mean, it's possible to link it to an alien invasion. I mean, JFK pretty much was assassinated after trying to create trying to shut down the Federal Reserve Bank, basically, and start making the American government print its own money rather than letting a privately owned bank print the money and loan it to the American government at interest, thus creating the self-serving debt. I don't know whether it was linked to an alien invasion or not as well, but
he also wanted to.
The other American president that was assassinated, Abraham Lincoln, was also assassinated when he was trying to create a gold standard currency and do away with the central banking system. So it tends to be when the banking system seems to be interfered with, that they tend to be assassinated.
I mean, JFK also wanted to break up the CIA. He wanted to make it into smaller, which is, if the CIA had been smaller and had been set up or organised differently, 9/11 wouldn't have happened, is one argument.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of wrong things the CIA have been involved in, and he was probably right that he needed to shut the CIA down and bring back some kind of oversight, because some of the slush funds they've got and what they've been up to. I mean, they've pretty much been proven to be involved in the Contra cocaine trafficking into America in the 1980s. It was the CIA that was bringing it all in, and the DEA that was going around and arresting the people they sold it to.
Yeah, I mean, the CIA were doing up some really dodgy dodgy crap because they were trying to create funds illegally so that they could then do the things abroad that were illegal that they wanted to do, like take down governments and stuff. And so they had these billions in these slush funds, and apparently still do today.
I think Hollywood's got it right. With a lot of the films they do about the CIA. What was it I watched last night? Safe House, I think I watched.
That's brilliant. That's good.
Denzel Washington. That's a great film. That's probably spot on in my
There's
opinion.
another Denzel Washington film called Two Guns, and that's what this is about. Actually, the CIA have these little banks in New Mexico.
Yes.
Just full of
Oh,
cash.
Mark Wahlberg. Yes, I've seen that one as well.
Brilliant film. But that's what that's all about. The CIA, and then Bill Paxton's the greasy CIA guy. It was his last film. Actually, he passed away just after that.
Yeah.
And he's trying to get the CIA's dirty money back, sort of thing. And that's all that film's about. It's brilliant.
I believe that's probably the closer to the truth than we would like to care on a lot of fronts. I imagine there's a lot of those illegal slush funds that are gathered from illegal means and being used for illegal means.
Yeah, because it's the way they think. So, and then it keeps it off the books that way.
Sorry,
but a little bit. Well, Cooper also said that the AIDS virus was manufactured. There is already a cure, but it was designed specifically to decrease the population of homosexuals, blacks, and Hispanics. Which actually is going through COVID-19 at the moment. We're hearing this theory again, and that's what COVID-19 was designed to do as well. So,
I expect that's just due to the slightly higher percentage of fatalities within the ethnic minorities that probably links to them living with more extended members of their family than perhaps.
It is true as well that this what they call BAME community now, black and ethnic minorities, they're about twice as likely to die from COVID.
Really? That is quite a big difference. But I'd assume it was related to lifestyle, how they live, who they live with.
Yeah.
More generations of the same family, so it's easy to pass it through to the older generation.
There's still a lot of research going into it. I don't think they
to die from it. That's all. I very
don't think they know why yet.
That we would be clever enough to have engineered a disease from bats, made it cross species into humans, and then target specific humans. I just don't think we'd be at that point where we could do the targeting of specific humans.
Doesn't target very well. We sort of in our episode that we did, we said it kills the it's like 80% or something of a mortality rate for the over 80s. And you don't think about governments have a problem paying pension funds. What if there's a connection there?
Wasn't there someone somewhere was saying that because of obviously the lockdown for such an extended period and the significantly less road traffic that was there in that period, that significantly less people have died from road traffic collisions, which has outweighed coronavirus deaths worldwide anyway.
Oh, I love that. I love that. But without the lockdown, if you believe the mainstream, without the lockdown, we'd have had more like 200,000, 250,000 dead from COVID. So.
You need to look at like average deaths in different countries, like for the last several years during the period where the coronavirus has been around, and then compare what the deaths are from coronavirus and the normal deaths in that period to previous years in that period. And you could do it, but I haven't looked into the numbers.
No, exactly.
To confirm it, but it's interesting.
Anyway, so there are claims that William or Bill Cooper did plagiarize loads of theories, and apparently one of the things he did was even theories that were released as a hoax or a joke or as pranks, he would then plagiarize, and they would appear in his radio stories if they were fact, or he would then say he has evidence of them. And other ufologists and things were saying, no, we know that's a joke. He told you it was a joke, but why are you telling us? So Dan Ecker from the UFO magazine exposed him in a series of articles which you can go and find, and really showed him to be a little bit dishonest when it comes to this area.
Right.
But then the way he died was also pretty cool. Now, I don't really want to die on, like grey old man on the deathbed. I want to die in a blaze of glory. I want to be in the newspapers. I want to be man of 90 does something ridiculous, like stole a Lamborghini and went through a wall or something. You know what I mean? I want to make the news. I want people to go, oh yeah, that guy. Sort of thing. I don't want to just die in my bed. But this guy, he sort of did that. He really moved away from conspiracy theories in his later life and started really getting into the militia. There was an arrest warrant released in '98 for a aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Really into his guns. And then November 5th, 2001, the police finally caught up with him. He was heard screaming, "You won't take me alive." And one of the officers from Arizona State Police shot him in the head. So you could take that.
He wasn't wrong, was he?
No, they weren't taking him alive. But you could take this two ways, right? That this is a guy who actually did see real evidence of this story, which is, this Cunningham Lovette story, which would be terrifying if it was true, and then was discredited at every chance they got for the next 30 years, 40 years of his life. And he was then, when the situation got to a point where they felt safe they could, was assassinated. Or he's a lying nutter.
Yeah, there's some interesting. It's difficult to tell in this instance, isn't it, with this particular guy? It's very difficult.
Yeah. So where would you, if you were a betting man, where would you go? Is this Lovette Cunningham story true?
It's a difficult one, because if he's been seen to be lying on, the same topic, it's difficult to believe him. But on the same thought process, I also think that perhaps it's just sort of his the end of his life, where he'd got more into the militia. Maybe he'd just been so fed up with what had occurred to him and being ridiculed his whole life for something that he believed had happened to him, but he told, that he just got fed up with authority and just wasn't willing to entertain anybody in an authoritative position anymore because of the ridicule for so many years. So I'm a bit 50-50.
Yeah. And especially, again, he had a radio show, so he was going to be under pressure to have new stories and new things week in, week out.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why he got sort of caught or accused of lying, was because he was repeating stuff he genuinely believed might be true. And
embellishing on later stories that he perhaps didn't have any evidence for, because he had so little evidence for the real one that had occurred to him.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And there were, and like I say, and the public record shows as well that he was in the Navy. He was a petty officer, which is in the Navy, in the American Navy, is roughly equivalent to like a second-class sergeant, I think, in the Army, something like that. So
I also think it's such an insulting rank to have, petty officer.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? But he also did do a tour of Vietnam and did receive 2 service medals, which is, again, so it's reasonably impressive. This guy was in the military. He was doing the stuff he said he was doing. That there isn't evidence that he was in Navy intelligence, but there wouldn't be, or it depends on what he was doing, or wouldn't be public record at least. So I'm in two minds about this. My sensible brain goes, it's obviously not true. This is a guy that wanted to believe this, and he wanted the notoriety. He had a radio show for nearly 10 years, and it's probably not true. But the more you look into it and the more I think about it, I can't dismiss it like some people have. They dismiss it as being, he's a fraud and that's it, boom, done, move on. I can't dismiss that, because
also, you just because somebody lied later in their life about another incident doesn't mean they lied about the earlier incident. Do you know what I mean? Like, so just because you caught somebody lying later, it's like when Bill Burr's going on about all his great heroes are just getting annihilated by the platoon of gold digging whores coming across the horizon. And
as soon as one person gets caught in a lie, they think that's it then, don't they? That everything else must be a lie. And it's
shrouded, Arnold Schwarzenegger's nobody because he slept with his maid. Like, nothing counts. Terminator's not a good film. Terminator is still a good film. Terminator 2 would be better. But, he
was actually still a good governor. So he was a good governor.
Yeah.
As far as anything I saw, he actually did a good job. So, but,
I'm just trying to say that everything he ever said isn't a lie because he said one lie.
Yeah, but humans are human. We make mistakes, we fuck up, and everybody lies at some point or other.
And when you've got the CIA probably trying to put disinformation out about you all the time to make you look like to ridicule you and make you look like an idiot and make people think that you were just lying,
Yeah.
Eventually, it probably will grind you down. I would imagine over the years.
That's the thing, isn't it? Though, to be honest, because we are all human, and because the government controls a lot of the records, they'll say, "Well, there's no public records." Yeah, but that's government-controlled public records a lot of the time. If the government do want to ridicule you and make you look like an idiot, it's actually not that difficult. So yeah, I think it's distinctly possible this story could be true, and I think it could have been put under the carpet. I'm not going to bet my house on it though.
No.
That way.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. Well, yeah, I wouldn't ascribe. It's probably, I don't know, maybe 60-40 in favour of believing it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's maybe 70-30, but it's hard to go much higher than that.
You're going a little higher than me. I think I'd maybe go 50-50 at best.
Would you? 60-40, I'd probably say was where I'm at with it. I'm leaning towards believing it, but still some concern.
Yeah, but it's the point that, though, it's such a horrifying story, is why I could believe they would cover it up and try to destroy him and destroy his credibility. That's where I am at. I think I don't really believe it, but I believe that if it was true, they'd destroy him over it. There you go. All right then. That's it. That's the Lovette Cunningham incident. Another one that may or may not be true. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, see you next week.
That's just favour, mate. Put your thing just half a centimetre down. Just like that. Perfect. Because I find it very attractive when you breathe deeply into my ears, but other people aren't so keen.